Hey, this is Islam. Welcome to 5th episode of Immunity series. In this 5th episode of Immunity series, I'm going to discuss about vitamin D in the context of COVID-19. How vitamin D helps our body to fight COVID-19 infection, right? So it's going to be a very informative video. So do watch the video till the end. Now, vitamin D is a group of fat-soluble vitamins. So many of you already know that. Now, in many observational studies like done in 2017 by Martineau and long back in 2012 by Charan and his colleagues, it was observed that people who were with a low vitamin D level in blood were more prone to acute respiratory infections, right? And on the other hand, people who were with high vitamin D level in blood were less prone to acute respiratory infections. And we know that COVID-19 is an acute respiratory infection, right? Now, these are mere observational studies. Now, let's analyze it scientifically. What is the reason behind that? What is the science behind that? Now, vitamin D is widely known for bone health as it promotes calcium absorption from small intestine. But very few people know about the other major functions of vitamin D. One of the primary actions of vitamin D is the regulation of gene transcription. Now, what is gene transcription? Every cell in our body synthesizes some very functional important molecules for survival, right? And all these information are actually stored in DNA of the cell, and in any information stored in DNA, in any segment of the DNA, when it is copied into a new molecule of messenger RNA, and that leads to synthesis of different functional molecules like proteins, and this process is called gene transcription. Now, many of these gene transcriptions actually are regulated by vitamin D that leads to synthesis of some particular proteins. Now, what are these proteins, right? Let's have a look on that. Many cell types possess genes that make antimicrobial peptides, in short AMP, and those genes are regulated by vitamin D, right? Now, what are these antimicrobial peptides? Now, these antimicrobial peptides are like endogenous antibiotics that our body can produce on its own. But these endogenous antibiotics are not the same with the antibiotics that you buy from the medical store, because these antibiotics that we buy from medical store can fight only bacterial infection. They cannot fight viral infection or any other fungal infection or parasite infection, right? But these endogenous antibiotics that our body can produce on its own can fight fungi, parasites, viruses, in addition to bacteria and mycobacteria. So technically they are actually not antibiotics, but they are antiviral as well, antifungal, antiparasite, right? Now, these antimicrobial peptides include cathelicidin, defensins, S100 proteins, ribonucleases, and dermicidin. Out of all these antimicrobial peptides produced by the genes of the cells regulated by vitamin D, I would like to discuss about defensins and cathelicidin in the context of COVID-19. These defensins are produced by the genes of the cells of innate immune system, and those genes of the cells are regulated by vitamin D. And these cells such as neutrophils, macrophages, and epithelial cells. Neutrophils, macrophages are immune cells, and epithelial cells are the cells of barriers like skin cells, cells of the gastrointestinal tract or urinary tract. So these cells produce defensins, antimicrobial peptides, and the genes of these cells are regulated by vitamin D, and this is very important here. And defensins are composed of basically 29 to 42 amino acids. So these are like short to medium chain of amino acids. Defensins can fight the virus, can inhibit viral infection by multiple mechanisms. Now here I have included some common mechanisms of action. Like for example, they can form destructive pores in the membranes of the virus that can kill the virus eventually. They also blocks the cell signaling pathway within the infected cells, so the virus cannot replicate further. Even they also can inhibit the interactions between glycoprotein and cellular receptors, so the virus cannot bind with this receptor and can enter the host cell. Now glycoproteins are the proteins, those are found at the outer surface of the virus. So this is the way they inhibit, by inhibiting the interaction between the glycoproteins and a cellular receptor. It disrupts viral fusion, so the virus cannot enter the cell. So this is the most common mechanism of defensins by which defensins inhibits viral infection. As per a recent study done in 2020 in the month of March, it was found that intestinal defensins produced by intestinal cells displayed a strong ability to prevent COVID-19 spike protein to bind to intestinal epithelial cells by blocking the ligand binding domain of ACE2. This is where ACE2 bind with the receptor, and we know that the ACE2 receptors are the entry point for COVID-19, and that site can be blocked by intestinal defensins, so the virus cannot enter the cell, right? So this is very important. I will definitely include all these study links, research papers links in the description box, so you can, if you want to know more about these studies, you can go through that. Okay. Now let's have a look on cathelicidin. Cathelicidin that I was supposed to talk, it's another type of antimicrobial peptide, and the common mechanism of action, that how it helps our body to fight microbes, viruses. Well, it increases in type 1 interferon expression. Now the interferons are like protein molecules. These are protein molecules, and these stimulate macrophages and natural killer cells, these are immune cells, to elicit an antiviral response. Okay, so this is one of the common mechanisms of cathelicidin. And another mechanism is that cathelicidin rapidly destroys the lipoprotein membranes of the microbes. So these are some common most common mechanisms. This is how cathelicidin or defensins work, right? And there are many other mechanisms as well, but these are the most common ones. One of the significant functions of defensins and cathelicidins is to decrease a pro-inflammatory cytokines production, and we know that excess inflammation due to excess release of cytokines, a phenomena called cytokine storm, causes the worst effects in COVID-19 patients, right? So that's why it's very important to keep the cytokine release on check, right? So the defensins and cathelicidins actually regulates and decreases the cytokines release. So this is really a significant function. Now, as another study published in 2020 in the month of March by Patrick J. McCullough and his colleagues, it was found that people who were with vitamin D level concentration less than 20 nanogram per 100 ml was not sufficient to sustain antimicrobial production, right? So a person having less than 20 nanogram per 100 ml vitamin D concentration in blood could not sustain antimicrobial production. Okay. Now, as per clinical guideline, the normal range for vitamin D is 30 to 100 nanogram per 100 ml. When a person is, the vitamin D concentration level is more than 20 but less than 30, it is considered to be vitamin D insufficiency. And then again, when the vitamin D level concentration is less than 20, it is called vitamin D deficiency. Okay. Now, as per if you have vitamin D serum level 30 nanogram per 100 ml or 35 nanogram per 100 ml, as per clinical guideline, it may be normal, but it is not optimal. Now, if you see the range is 30 to 100, there is a huge gap. And if you have 30 and in your report, vitamin D clinical report, it says normal, but still you are on the minimum side, the lowest side, right? So that is why at least you should try to achieve 50 nanogram per 100 ml of blood, your serum vitamin D concentration for optimal functioning of your body and to sustain sufficiently antimicrobial production. Okay. Now, a small amount of vitamin D is found in food except fatty fish. In fatty fish, vitamin D level is comparatively significantly high compared to other foods. Still, the only significant source of vitamin D is sunlight, right? So that is why try to get at least 30 minutes of sun exposure in between 10 to 4 p.m. Daily. Okay. If you cannot do that, then you definitely have to depend on vitamin D supplementation. Now, a valid question to ask, what amount of vitamin D you should be consuming as a supplementation? Well, it depends on your current vitamin D level status. If you are deficient or insufficient, then you may require higher doses of vitamin D, right? Or if you are within the normal range, maybe 30 or 35, you may require a little less than those who are deficient or insufficient. So for the same, you consult with the doctor and tell about your goal, what amount of vitamin D you are trying to achieve, and as per that, your doctor will definitely help you, right? So that's all for this video, and get your vitamin D level checked and see where you are, and take steps accordingly. Right, I will definitely make another video on vitamin D supplementation and the doses and what amount of vitamin D you should consume as a supplementation for different categories of people. I will make a video where I will discuss all these things in details. So thank you so much. If you have found this information that I have shared with you in this video very important, if you have learned something new, then do subscribe my channel. Thank you so much. We'll be back soon with the next video.